adopted, and it will force the preparation procedures of this meeting. Let me say also that we have the very good bilateral dialogue, political dialogue. And let me just confirm my saying that just 1 month ago, we had a telephone conversation between our prime ministers, and during that we reiterated the invitation for Croatian Prime Minister Mr. Andrew Plenković to visit Ukraine. We hope this year, maybe just after the pandemic. And I cannot choose but say that we really appreciate the Croatian efforts as the current president in the European Union, for the help to Ukrainian side, which we already received from the European institutions to tackle with the current pandemic. First of all, to support our health system and to cope with the consequences of the social, economical consequences of the pandemic. Let me also wish you a very fruitful negotiation during this webinar, and we hope all the results of this seminar will be reflected in the preparation of the next bilateral meeting of the Bilateral Economical Commission. So let me greet all of you. I wish you all good health and very fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khamanets. And we will continue. And now we come into the main topic. We will speak about the agrarian potential of Ukraine and Croatia. And for me, big honor to give the floor State Secretary of Ministry of Agriculture of Croatia, Mr. Tugomir Majdak.
Good afternoon to everybody. I will try to first of all put on the screen, to share on the screen the presentation. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, yes.
Everybody, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this invitation on behalf of Croatian Ministry of Agriculture. Warm regards to Mr. Čizikov, President of the UCCI, and my regards to Ambassador of Ukraine to the Republic of Croatia, Mr. Vasil Kirilic, our Ambassador in Ukraine, Mrs. Janic, and with me is also present here in our Ministry of Agriculture, Honorary Consul of Ukraine in Croatia, Mr. Ivica Piric. Regards to everybody, experts, guests, Mr. Čizmek, Mr. Bičvić, representative of Žito Group. I will try in short sentences to inform you about our investment opportunity in Croatia from perspective of our Ukraine partners. Let me start with second. Yes. Okay. Can you see the second slide? Is it
yes,
available to you?
Yes.
Okay.
All good.
I don't know. I'm the first time use this technique, and I want to be everything valid. Our economic accounts in 2019 is the amount of agriculture in billion, 17.1 billion, or in euro 2.27 billion. Comparable to the previous year, 2018, the value of agricultural production decreased and it is connected with all figure and facts after first 3 years of utilizing of EU funds. We very successfully utilized these funds, especially Rural Development Fund, and now we are on 90% of contracted project under this fund, and we are focused on next period. That means that we are waiting for a new regulation on the level of EU and new perspective together with programming perspective, also financial too. You know, everybody that on the level of EU now negotiations about multi financial framework are almost done or in the finish phase, and from this perspective we are waiting for other sources of money for future investment in Croatia agriculture and processing industry too. I will provide also by email all presentation if for you are these numbers too small to read them, but definitely we are, if you see this cake about structure of our production, plant production is leading, livestock breeding then, and agricultural services and secondary services, if you see all structure of our figures. Foreign trade exchange in 2019 relating exports and imports, we are exporting mainly cereals. We are very familiar then that situation is in Ukraine, but you are feeding almost all Europe by your sources or land resources, and we are orientated also because decreasing trend of number of livestock unit or because in the last 10 years we little bit lost a lot of number or figures in livestock production, and it is resulted that cereal production is in increasing phase. Then we are oriented in our export, but now in our new strategy, we are finishing a new strategy for agriculture sector orientated on rural development. We will try to invest more in processing facilities, especially in leading sector, cereals, livestock, fruit and vegetables. Then what is also for stressed very important, that cereals products, flour, starch, milk products, we are in a little bit amount we have export numbers. On the other hand, when we are talking about imports, meat and edible offal are leading cereals, but not cereal like product, but in processing phase we are a lot of them import, and because of that our investments will be focused in processing facilities. Definitely we are not self-sufficient in milk and dairy products, poultry, eggs, and 80% of self-sufficiency, and beverages, alcohol, and wine gar. This lead us to some opportunities when we are talking about our future partnership between Croatia and Ukraine. Opportunities are definitely in production or investment in facilities for vegetable production, livestock breeding and processing industry. Also, we are very famous about our tobacco industry and tobacco production, poultry and eggs production. There are some also existing facilities or companies from your country in Croatia, now Croatia and Slovenia in poultry production, and we are cooperated. They are cooperating with the Ministry of Agriculture, and they have some plans to build new facilities to increase their production here. When we talk about poultry, I'm talking about Perutnina Ptuj in Slovenia and in Croatia, Pipo company. And also about beverages and wine production, very much opportunities for future cooperation on to increase and definitely to boost our cooperation between two countries. Sugar beet production or sugar beet processing industry, we have one company which is connected three facilities, two of them processing sugar beet, and one from recently time orientated to process another sugar products from another resources, and there is a potential place for our cooperation. Another opportunities what we can not offer, but together boost and build and increase definitely. We are EU member state, and access to the common market is very easy, very quick or fast. EU funds and support, I also stressed it in my introduction, that we are waiting for new envelope for EU funds for agriculture, rural development, fisheries, and direct payments in Croatian agriculture. We have a very good negotiator. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Plenković, is already stressed up that the cohesion policy and agriculture and rural policy are very important for Croatia, and that we, on the base of our recently joining to the EU family from 2013, that we expect the same amount, same envelope for rural development, and the same amount of money for direct payments. Definitely our road, rail infrastructure and the airport connections are very valid for boost our cooperation between two countries. And the last but not the least important is our tourism. Tourism is our leading sector, and many of our Croatian products if you are talking about agricultural product or processing products from agricultural production, our intention to finish on tourism through the hotels and other facilities on our sea. There is also opportunities to build together this approach together with our Ukrainian partners. And I will finish with that sentence. Thank you very much for your attention. We are open for future cooperation, and we definitely in the last 2-3 years thankful to Mr. Piric boost our cooperation, and on both sides we expect that it will be more for our entrepreneurs, for our companies, both on Ukraine and the Croatian side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Maidak. And now for me, it's a big honor also to present, but many Ukrainian knows very good this minister, because Olga Vasilievna Trofimtseva was the Minister of Agrarians, Forest and Food of Ukraine during 2017-19. And for us, it's a very important. She is continuing to play important role in these fields, and for us, it's a big honor to give you the floor for you, Olga. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gennady. It's really a great pleasure to be a part of today's event, of this meeting. And as I always said during my work in the ministry, and I'm continuing to say that bringing businesses together, having the constant and systematic dialogue between their Croatian and Ukrainian businesses, it's a key success factor for the development of the economic relations between two countries. And we are talking not only about trade, and I would like to thank Mr. Tugomir Maidak for the great presentation on the opportunities and a great picture of the Croatian economy and trade relations. I also would like to thank from the beginning to the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Trade and to the embassies, Ukrainian embassy in Croatia, Mr. Vasil Kyrillich, and Your Excellency, welcome also to Ukraine, welcome to Kyiv. Not an easy time, but nevertheless, thank you for participating in this event, because the embassies are also always have been, as a Minister of Foreign Affairs as well, the very active participants of the economic relations, economic diplomacy, etc. I'm very pleased also to say that when we're talking about the numbers, and let's start with numbers, I'm pleased to say that our bilateral trade in agriculture and food is steadily growing, as we see from the numbers since 2015, when we had the bilateral turnover in agriculture and food only $3.7 million. Last year, it was already over $9 million out of the general trade turnover between Croatia and Ukraine of almost $80 million. So that's very good dynamic, positive dynamics. But again, and here I can confirm what was said before, but by Mr. Maidak, that when we're talking about the trade, that's only the part of economic relations, of bilateral economic relations, and we should pay more attention definitely on the wider picture, on the economic relations in investments, in bilateral cooperation projects, etc. At the governmental level, by the way, I know that we do have the bilateral memorandum in agricultural sphere between the ministries, but this memorandum was signed already quite time ago. To be precise, in 2006, and that's why I think it's really time to renew this bilateral memorandum to see which points, which moments of our bilateral cooperation are now maybe higher in the agenda, take into account the world economic crisis, take into account the dynamics of international trade, including agricultural and food trade. And you definitely know that the COVID-19 had very great implications on international trade system, on WTO functioning, that the WTO is predicting that international trade will be going down by more than 30% this year. And that's definitely dramatic. That's why the bilateral cooperation and bilateral trades is starting to play a more and more important role for the countries who would like to recover from this economic crisis and negative, let's say, implications of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's why we should again, coming back to the official framework, we should renew this memorandum and pay attention to the most prominent, maybe, fields of work, which could be interesting for the Ukrainian, both Ukrainian and Croatian businesses. As I've heard from the previous presentation, we are talking here about the processing industry, and I can confirm that I'm absolutely sure that it's definitely interesting also for Ukrainian enterprises in absolutely different fields, starting this processing of grains and ending up this poultry, meat processing, deeper food processing products, for instance, production of ingredients, food ingredients for the processing industry, etc. And yes, we are talking, you're absolutely right, Mr. Majdak, we are talking here not only about the Croatian market, which is, well, comparatively small, let's say, but we are talking about the European Union market in general here. We should also take into account definitely the regional cooperation, and everybody knows Croatia as a country, tourism country, yes, so the great country for the tourists. And Ukraine is only starting to work on the development of the domestic tourism, of the green tourism. So here I see also a very wide opportunity for the businesses from our both countries to work on together. So not only the tourism in the classic meaning of this word, but the green tourism, rural tourism, which can be well developed already in Croatia with the help of the EU funding, but it's still underdeveloped in Ukraine. When we're talking about the processing of foods and vegetables, it's also the commercial, the industrialized processing of the fruits and vegetables. It's also quite interesting field or direction of cooperation, take into account the structure of our bilateral trade. And coming back to trade, we know that again, that's a similar story in many cases, but I'm absolutely sure that we should work on the diversification of the trade structure between our countries, because as always, quite often is happening, we do have 3 up to 5 product groups which are taking the major part of the structure of bilateral trade, and we should again look for the potential niche products like organic products, like, as I said, food ingredients, or some interesting high value added food products which can be produced together in Croatia or in Ukraine and then exported to the third markets in the European Union countries, etc. So we should really here have a little bit broader view on the opportunities, on the potentials, on the business interests, not only in agriculture and food, but as I said, we should take into account such fields like green tourism. And what I didn't mention before, but what I'm also a very great fan of, this is the agricultural technologies. This is one of the booming subsectors of Ukrainian agri-food at the moment, and I also would like to see here more active cooperation between our two countries, because when we're talking about the agri-technologies, agtech, we are talking here also about the renewable energies. We are talking here about precision agriculture. We are talking here about the smart farming decisions, complex smart farming decisions for the large-scale, small-scale producers, etc. And in case in Croatia, I know that you have a lot of sunny days there, and I don't know how developed their for instance, the solar energy in Croatia at the moment. But for instance, renewable energy sources, it could be one of the directions here also in technology cooperation between the businesses from Croatia in Ukraine. I would like to stop here because I would like to have more time for our discussion later for Q&A session. But in any case, there are already several fields of cooperation where we have very many things to do already, yeah. So, and which could be tapped by the businesses already now. So I really hope that today's meeting will be like a kickoff meeting for the more active dialogue between the businesses, and then the COVID quarantine is over. We can organize the full-scale business meeting at the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and discuss closely with our Croatian partners these opportunities which I listed before.
Thank you very much, Olga. As usual, it was very interesting, and thank you very much, Mr. State Secretary. We, after the big picture of Ukrainian and Croatian possibilities and opportunities, how we can work in the national level. Now we are going to the level of companies, enterprise businesses, and we speak about the potential for business for both sides. I'd like to say what maybe it will be interesting for, first of all, for Croatian, our partner friends, what we know in our supermarket, some maybe some Croatian brands like Podravka, like Badel 1862, like Sardina, and many others. But we very hope that due to support of our embassy in Croatia, Chamber of Commerce, our representative Mr. Piyush, more and more Ukrainian brands will be more recognizable on in the supermarket of your lovely country. But one of these brands, I know, everybody knows, this is Mironovsky Hliboprodukt, and for me it's a big honor to present Mr. Dmitro Los, advisor of CEO of this group. Please, Dmitro.
Thank you, Mr. Chizhikev, for thank you, Gennady, for presenting me.
Where are you?
Actually, you know, you can use a lot of features of Zoom. So actually, this is one of the photos which I made in Southern Africa, on the land of one of Ukrainian producers of wine in Southern Africa, Mr. Hajduk. So, you know, when you're sitting in a rainy day in your office, it's better to show something like this picture. So, you know, thank you for inviting me to this conference, and thank you to Mr. Majdak, State Secretary, for mentioning part of our company, Pirotnina Ptuj. So I will make a short presentation of what we are. MHP Holding is one of the biggest producers of chicken in Ukraine and in Europe. Actually, after acquisition of Pirotnina Ptuj, we became a #3 producer in Europe of chicken. We're exporting to more than 80 countries in the world. And we have smaller factories and offices in Netherlands and Slovakia, and offices in Brussels and in Arab Emirates. Regarding business with Croatia, I like this country very much, and not only like tourist. I had a possibility during my trip on the car, going from Slovenia via Croatia to see this beautiful country. Especially it's beautiful in May, so definitely it's not only business opportunity, but also a tourist opportunity, as it was mentioned still. I can tell about 3 different periods of our company dealing with Croatia, because actually the first period was when Croatia was not a member of European Union. Then when Croatia became a member of European Union, and the last period when we bought European Neptune. I think that all the business in Ukraine knows. I don't think it's interesting to talk about period when Croatia was not a member of European Union. It was quite a long period ago, and now dealing with Croatia as a member of European Union, and I think all the gentlemen who are participating in this conference know the rules of European Union, and quite strict rules. So there are enormous quantity of directives which you as a producer have to follow up. Regarding if you're talking about breeding poultry, so it's regarding everything about buildings, about temperature regime, about every stage of the process. Definitely you will need to install HASP system, which MHP done 10 years ago, like one of the first companies, and definitely you need to see look carefully on your packaging and everything else. So before exporting food to Croatia, definitely we need to understand all the rules and to be very strict followers of these rules. Actually, no problem with customs. Everything is good. The one problem in dealing with Croatia in the period when we didn't buy Pirotnina was the question of borders and the question of transit. So from our point of view, definitely we can ship container, because Croatia has beautiful coastline, but it will mean that you need to supply frozen poultry, and when you're going to send it by trucks, not a lot of roads and quite big lines. So if you are planning to supply something fresh, you need to plan it very carefully, and how to use all the system of this truck supplying from Ukraine, and then not to make a possibility for trucks to go empty back from Croatia, how to fill them with Croatian products. So definitely, if you're hiring logistic company, it's their problem, but
Dmitry, we are not listening to you. Or something happened. We lost Dmitry.
yes, I'm here.
No, Joe. Come back.
So actually, the question of logistics and the question of transportation is maybe number one problem for supplying goods from Ukraine to Croatia, and maybe the main one, because in all the other spheres you are under control of Ukraine-European Associational Agreement, and it's part of the CFTA. So you just have to follow up your European rules. And maybe the last thing which I want to say to mostly to our Croatian colleagues, that we are really glad that right now we are operating more like a member of European family with Pirotnina Ptuj. I personally spoke to a lot of officials and in Croatia also. So as we planned and as we promised, we will continue our investment to Pirotnina Ptuj and to its Croatian part of our big team. So thank you for the attention, and if somebody has some questions, please, I'm free. I will be glad to answer.
Okay, thank you, Dmitry. You are usually very concrete because you are working really very good in Europe, in South Africa, and some other countries as well. Now we are coming. I would like to present Mr. Josip Bišvić, member of Manager Board, Žito Group, Croatian Food Processing Group. Please, Mr. Bišvić.
Hi to everyone. I hope that you can hear me very well. Personally, I would be much happier if we could have this conference held, let's say, in Kiev or Dubrovnik or Zadar, whenever. But hopefully, soon we'll have a chance. Like you said, let's take this as a kickoff, and maybe next time we can meet all in person for a few days somewhere to discuss all the possibilities. I will just have one slide shared with you about the few most important figures about the company, just in case if you haven't been able to visit the website of the company. So just the most important figures. Just a second. Just a second. Sorry. So when Mr. Trofinceva said that let's talk about the figures, it's very difficult to compare and make some correlation about the figures regarding Ukraine and Croatia, because usually we have to add at least 1 or 2 zeros about all the figures being compared, starting about the size of the country or the population, arable land or the production, but this is just short figures about the Žito Group today. So the group in full employs around 1,600 employees, yearly revenues around 360 million euros. We export about 1/3 of our products to the foreign markets, mostly EU. It's a family-owned business, vertically integrated in a food production, the famous from farm to table. And for the last few years, we have been having quite intense investment cycles with annual investments in new projects going up to 100 million euros annually. I will stop with presentation, not to go into further details. If anyone has any questions, of course, I'm happy to answer. There are many similarities if we talk about Ukraine agriculture and Croatian agriculture, although the figures are much less. So we are also similarly like Ukraine, net exporter of most raw materials, of grains, oilseeds, and we as a company are trying to build more and more processing facilities to utilize these raw materials and to export more value-added products rather than raw materials. We as a company, we control or buy approximately 20% of the grains and oilseeds from the Croatian production total, and we process, let's say, 70% out of that, around 350,000 tons of oils and grain seeds. The surplus we export to mainly Italy and other European markets. So I have been doing some search and exploring about, am I saying correctly, MHP or MHP? What is the correct abbreviation of your company, Mr. Loss? Is it MHP or MHP? How do you spell the abbreviation? Hello, Mr. Loss?
In English, it's rather MHP.
MHP, okay.
I've heard, so,
yeah,
yes.
so I have been studying how to make some concrete ideas or potential about the cooperation. So since you have a company, production company that is present in Croatia and Slovenia, we as a net exporter or seller of not only grains and oilseeds locally, but also as oil crushing facility, we also sell meals. So as I know, as I saw on your websites, you are mainly producing the compound feeds by yourself in your feed factories. So there is, of course, a very, I would say, concrete idea to exchange contacts and maybe discuss possibilities of Žito as a company, including in the supply chain of Perutnina. As a company, so far, the only experience in business with Ukraine we had in the last few years while importing crude sunflower oil. So we had several years where the sunflower crops in Croatia have been quite poor. So there was a lack of sunflower oil, and we imported some of the oil from Bulgaria, some from Romania, but some also from Ukraine. So I saw that you also have a quite big oil producing department of the company. So between your company and Žito, for sure, there is also very good possibility to discuss that options, because you are a seller or exporter of sunflower oil. We could be for sure potential buyer. What I also see as a very highly potential option to discuss and to exchange, that is a knowledge exchange regarding, as also Mr. Tromfintseva, said, knowledge about arable land cultivation, solar energy. So we, as not a producer of equipment who are looking to sell, but as an investor who is investing in our own capacities, for sure can exchange some experiences, bad and good ones, and some knowledges that we acquired while building a new project. Of course, that's a knowledge to share, not to sell or to make some profit on it. But I would say a very good base to get to know each other better and find some other channels or opportunities to work together. So that is from me for now. I will, of course, share all of my contact information, email and phone number. So either after this conference or whatever opportunity comes along after that, I am available to everyone. And of course, I want to use this opportunity to invite all of you, both Croatian and Ukrainian sides, whenever there is a possibility, an option to come to Croatia, you are invited in Osijek, in Žito company, and I will be happy to be your host to show you what we are working and building on, and hopefully open some new possibilities. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Once more, I will continue our conference. I would like to propose all participants of our conference. If you have some questions, please, you may ask this question to our experts by writing on our chat or maybe online. What do you think about it?
I agree with us. We are waiting for your questions to our chat, or you can up your hands and we have a video of you and you can answer yourself.
Well, okay, colleagues. If you have any questions, I would like to many thanks all participants of our conference once more. And of course, firstly,
1 minute. Our representative in Istanbul, Mr. Pavel, is
yeah, sure. Our representative.
Yes, he have written, I am ready to support the members if you require any information from Turkey.
Sure.
Mr.
Greetings for Zakharov. Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues. Okay, we will inform about our next event now, video conference. I would like to many thanks once more all participants of today's video conference. Your Excellency, firstly, your colleague from Zagreb, of course, our official representative in Croatian Republic, Mr. Ivica Bilic. This is Olga Koflintsova, a very big friend of our organization, Mr. Vladimir Kamenets, Mr. State Secretary of Minister of Croatia. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Very pleased to hear that. Yeah.
Там є, пане Валерію, я дивлюсь, там є запитання від Укрсолі до хорватських. Можливо, дамо можливість задати запитання, щоб вже якось це. В чаті я дивлюсь, що ось представники Укрсолі, пані Алієва хоче задати питання нашим хорватським партнерам.
Доброго дня. Мене звати Марина Сапронова, я генеральний директор Асоціації підприємств і організацій селодобувної промисловості України. Є до хорватської сторони декілька запитань. Однією з головних цілей виробників соляної промисловості України є розширення ринків збуту. Ми бачимо перспективу експорту солі
англійською мовою, бо вони ж не...
А перекладач буде дублювати мене. Ми бачимо перспективи експорту солі на нові для нас ринки, у тому числі Хорватії. Наскільки розвинута соляна промисловість в даній державі і як можливо налагодити ділові зв'язки та посилити позиції українського виробника соляної промисловості на хорватському ринці? А також наскільки розвинута галузь водних перевезень? Дякую.
Marina Sapronova is the General Director of the Association of Enterprises of Salt Industry, Ukrasalt. She would like to pose some questions to Croatian counterpart. One of the main goals of producers of salt products in Ukraine is to expand sales markets in foreign countries. We see the prospect of exporting salt and entering new markets for us in Croatia. How developed is the salt industry in the state, and in what way is it possible to establish business ties and strengthen the position of the Ukrainian salt producer Artomsol? If you know, it is the largest salt producer in Ukraine, in Croatian market. And one more question, how developed is the waterway transport sector in Croatia? Thank you so much.
Croatians into this question.
Well, our Croatian partners, who can answer
for this question?
Maybe Mr. Josip Bičvić can help us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
As I understood, so it was just slightly delayed for a phone call aside, but the topic was salt production, right?
Yeah, salt production.
Yeah, so we as a company are not involved in a salt production. We use some small amounts of the salt, but for sure I can connect you. You know, all the producers and buyers. Mr. Čizmek for sure also can maybe jump in to share the contacts and the connections about the companies involved in either salt production or in imports in Croatia. I'm confident that he is much more included in that business than I am.
Okay, thank you so much. And is there anybody who would like to answer our questions from Croatian counterpart? My general director is interested actually in this sector and would like to hear more if it's possible.
Berislav, would you involve?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I hear you.
Good afternoon to everyone. It was a pleasure to be the part of this event. Thank you once again to Ukrainian Embassy for working together in this project, and also thank you to the State Secretary, Mr. Majdak and Mr. Bichvich, to accept the invitation to be the speakers at this very interesting business forum today. CBBS is consulting and lobbying company, and we are working actually on strategic partnerships, supporting foreign companies entering the market, and we are open to talk with your company and to, let's say, see what's going on in the market and how we can connect you. So I would say there are different options to sell, or maybe to find a partner here, maybe to start something together. So there are different options. So definitely Ukrainian Embassy, and later on we can share all the details and we can stay in touch and see what's possible to be done in this respect. Maybe just to say a couple of words, since it was mentioned in the presentations about EU and EU topics. So I'm accredited lobbyist at European Parliament. As you know, right now there is an agenda of preparation, the framework 21-27 of the budget and all the activities of European Union. One of the topics is what Ms. Trofimtseva said, is digitalization, and especially digitalization and new technologies in agriculture, in agribusiness. CBBS is actually working very closely with innovative tech companies in Croatia. There is Digital Innovation Hub in Croatia, which is in a way run by CBBS. So we will be also very happy to maybe stage the platform or a different kind of cooperation between your tech companies and tech companies from Croatia. Maybe to share the information that even the companies from outside Croatia, from Lithuania, for example, established a couple of companies last year here. They participated in some EU project for startups. They won the project. So obviously there are a lot of opportunities for the cooperation, and we will be very happy to support you in such projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borislav. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have some question?
I have a question to Mr. Borislav. Could you please send me some information about your digitalization program for the agro industries? We might have some interest in Turkey.
Which program?
You said that you are in the digitalization of the agricultural sector.
Yes, so we are working with the new tech companies, and definitely we can get in touch and see what's going on and exchange the information with pleasure.
Yes, thank you. And if there is any also company in Ukraine, we would be interested to know about their abilities. Thank you.
Can I have one question more for producers? I don't know if Mr. Loss is still here.
Yes, you can answer. And the next question will be from Ms. Maria Bakac.
Hello, can you hear me? Maya Bakac speaking.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I work with Ukrainian companies for like 20 years. Our company, we import buckwheat from Ukraine. So we can say that Ukraine food is in our supermarkets. But recently we had a problem because Ukraine banned export on buckwheat and buckwheat products, which is, as far as I know, till 1st of July. And now we managed to convince our buyers in EU that they can hold until 1st of July. But there is another problem. There is import quota in EU. And in that quota is not only buckwheat, but also other products like bran and barley and other products that are not banned from Ukraine side. So what are the chances that this ban for export of buckwheat and buckwheat products would be ended sooner, would end sooner than it's 1st July, because I think we are losing a good supply market, and we have to turn to other markets to get some goods. Could someone
maybe
from Ukraine side answer us?
Maybe I can shortly try to answer it. Yes, you're right. We do have this temporary import ban on buckwheat till the 1st of July, and well, in fact, you see that this COVID and economic crisis raised again the wave of national protectionism everywhere, not only in Ukraine. In fact, protectionism in a way that many countries, like even Russian Federation, etc., were banning exports of food, of staples mostly. Or they are restricting the exports of staples, and in Ukraine, I think it was, to tell the truth, a wrong decision, and we don't have any reasons to ban or to restrict the exports of buckwheat or any other kind of grains or other products. But as for your question, very practical answer. If you have already partners here in Ukraine, producers or exporters who were working with you on the export of buckwheat, I would suggest that you together with them prepare a sort of official letter, official request to the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine with such a letter to have their well, to maybe how to rightly to say it, to propose with some argumentation that there is no deficit of the buckwheat on Ukrainian domestic market, that we are damaging our reputation as a supplier of this kind of products on international markets, etc., etc. And there's a request to the Minister of Economy and Trade of Ukraine to see again this measure, and maybe they will be able to have the decision on the earlier lifting their ban on exports of the buckwheat. So this is one of the possible ways how to deal with that. I think that the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce can maybe help with that as well, so we can maybe join such kind of requests to Ukrainian government, to Ukrainian ministry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to invite Mr. Berislav Chizmak. He wants to ask us about something.
Yes, there was one question. So we are a company in the national business for more than 25 years, and sometimes we have, let's say, different requests. Lately, we got requests about the export of chicken meat to China, since Croatia and Slovenia. So Slovenia has the certification, but Croatia still doesn't have. So I was told that you are, let's say, in procedure of from Mr. Goropaha, that you are in procedure of finalizing agreements with Chinese government about the export of chicken meat to China. So it would be maybe a question for Mr. Loss and other people here at the event. So do you have maybe the information when it would be possible to export chicken meat from Ukraine, for example, to China? Because obviously the needs in Chinese market are very high.
I don't see if Mr. Loss is still here. I also can shortly maybe respond to that. That's true that we was at the governmental level, we was at the closing stage of the agreement. And as far as I know, till the end of 2019, the final decision by the National Custom Agency of the China had to be made. But I don't know about the results till I'm not in the government now. So I don't know, maybe some colleagues can comment on that. As far as I know, there were no obstacles or no problem points anymore in this negotiation. So it was only the question of this, final official decision, official letter to start the procedure of certification of the concrete production facilities, Ukrainian production facilities. So maybe our Minister of Foreign Affairs can say something of that on that. Володимир, я не знаю, може ви...
Yes, Olga. Irina, just to confirm that what you just said, that we don't have any political and even technical obstacles to for further work. I mean, for the certification of Ukrainian production. So.
But is it possible to export right now to China chicken meat or not yet?
Yes, as if my memory serves me well, I don't remember any restrictions to for export poultry to China. I mean, it will be more efficiency if Mr. Loss says some comments, because he the man who is directly related to the issue of exporting of Ukrainian such kind of products. But as I remember, we don't have restrictions.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we can share the information on later stage, not to keep everybody waiting right now. Thank you very much.
Well.
So thank you very much.
Have you some questions?
No.
Okay. As I think, my colleagues, we must organize our next meeting, maybe nearest future.
Oh,
I
one
think it
minute.
will be very interesting.
I'm sorry.
For both
because
sides.
One company. No. Okay. So. Wait. Mr. I cannot read because Ukrainian Rainer. Rainer Stein. Yes.
Yes. Our presentation.
You
Republic. Hello, Rainer.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to offer you, after the meeting, you may attend to me for Chinese questions, as I'm except representing Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce in Austria, I'm also representing a Chinese organization in Ukraine, which is directly under the command of the Chinese Ministry of Commerce. So I kindly offer you to put your questions to my address. Thank you.
Well, dear colleagues, if you don't mind, maybe in conclusion of our conference, few words from our guest, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Croatian Republic in Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Korol. I would like to say that it has been a very informative meeting, and I hope, as Madam Trofimtseva said, we all understood it's a kick-off meeting for a more productive and active dialogue. I would like also to thank to Madam Trofimtseva for reminding us about the broader sense of our relations. And of course, first step for our as ambassadors, for Mr. Gilerich and me, would be to, let's say, refresh the memorandum on agriculture. So I hope that we will work quickly and that we will have a new document as a good basis for continuation of our bilateral relations in agriculture. Thank you for participating.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll inform you about our next events. Please connect with us Thank you once more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.